everybody. Thanks for joining the HR in Action podcast. We have a guest today, Dr. Lisa, and she is the founder and CEO of Linked Results. So I'm very excited to talk to her and maybe get into some of the academic stuff and maybe get into some of the application and training and education stuff. We'll see where the conversation takes us today. But as typical, I will turn it over to you. And if you don't mind kind of giving us a little introduction on your background, experience, and the work you're doing, and we'll see where the conversation takes us.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Lee. I am the founder of Linked Results. More specifically, I am an HR researcher and evaluator, but in a more poetic way, I like to call myself a people, culture, and operations solutionist. Or maybe strategist, depending on how I'm feeling. And more specifically, I help businesses to understand the impact and return on investment of their HR initiatives. Basically, I'm the nerdy lady that comes in and asks questions and try to understand how emotions are driving performance and business outcomes, making sure that the human is at the center of every business decision and every strategy within, within a business. That's specifically what I do. And I started this out, really, I learned to do this from my background. I was in the United States Navy. I served 5 years. I joined the Navy directly out of high school at 16 years old. My mom signed me up, and I was what people would like to call a cook. But a cook is more than just cooking, right? Cooks are the morale of a ship. They're the morale of any environment. So that's where I learned the importance of emotions and how emotions can drive how people are motivated and confident and in how they perform. And so after transitioning, I knew that was something that was kind of like HR related and is HR related, but HR wasn't really doing that. So that's how I created my business. Basically, after struggling to try to find a job. And during that time, it was so much going on just in government and me thinking I'm going to get a government job because I'm from DC, right? So if you're from DC, you get a federal job. Right. And that really didn't work out, but for the best, because now I am having my own business and helping other people to do this and recognize the importance of the human factor within the workspace.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, that's great. And so we share that Navy side background. I wasn't active duty, obviously, as you know, but for the last 20 plus years worked as a civilian for the Navy and then as a contractor. So it's a different world for sure than I think what a lot of people experience in the commercial side. But so let's dive in. I'm very curious on, when you go into these organizations, what are you looking for? What are you doing? How are you making these assessments? Is it more qualitative or quantitative or both? Or, what's kind of the process?
I love qualitative approaches, but I do understand and recognize the importance of numbers. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie, as Jay-Z would say. And so I'm going to lean into more mixed methods approaches, of course, but I think the first thing with any business before I step foot in, I need to understand the employer-employee relationship, or the leader and the subordinate type of relationship. Is there actually a relationship? And if so, is there conflict? Is it smooth? What is that relationship like? Is there actual trust amongst each other? I think that's the first key of me knowing how I want to go in and actually begin my assessment, because that's going to determine why there actually are issues from the beginning. So that first and foremost is something that I really, really take heed on looking at. And I can do that in many ways. I can look at past assessments and surveys and things like that, exit interviews, online reputation. So that can lead into both mixed methods as well, right? Because it's people writing how they feel, and then it also can be quantified. So I'm really looking more from previous history, all of the past, and then letting that tell the story of where we are now. And I think with a lot of leaders, I don't think they think about that when they're going about why issues are occurring, whatever they may be. They're more focused on, well, I've invested in this and this isn't working, but not the what, where, when, why, and how.
Sure. Or the root causes, I guess, right, behind it. So do you do, not all companies do surveys. Do you have specific surveys that you'll do, or specific you can do exit interviews and things like that, but I would guess, if I were going in there, I'd want to talk to some of the leadership and, do some interviews and things. And you can, I don't know, from my experience, you can tell pretty quick, from talking to a handful of people what the culture is and,
yes,
how they interact with each other. So what are you finding then over the last few years as you're getting into these companies? What are some of the biggest challenges and roadblocks that they're facing?
I think the biggest challenge, and not just from what I'm seeing when I go in, but what I'm reading online, when I look on LinkedIn and stuff, I'm noticing that everyone, and this leads into academics as well, everyone is focused on the best practice approach. So we're always regurgitating and doing the same approaches of what is viewed as best practice when it comes to being a leader, and assuming that that's the only way that we can lead. Or when we're looking at a lot of people, even you hear a lot of complaints of people, they'll say, oh, well, someone's born with a silver spoon and they've got this business, or they have this job because of their parents, so more than nepotism look. So they're also following that best practice of what they've learned or witnessed from their family. So when they go on to take over these businesses, they're following the same approaches. So whether academically or when you're looking more from a handed down type style business, it's everyone following what they've previously learned. And when we look at best practices, a lot of it stems from the typical understanding that the human factor is not always present. And that's one thing that I'm finding. And that's one thing of why people are unable to really make a relationship within their business, within as a leader, with the individuals that they're overseeing or anything like that. It's more, I'm the leader, I'm in command, the micromanagement of the situation and trying to control, versus allowing it to be more diplomatic and less stressed.
So are you saying that, leaders are seeing these, they're reading these books, or, the 5 secrets of whatever, the 7 best whatevers to this, and they think if they just do that, then all of a sudden they're... There's so then there's no actual sincerity behind it. They're not doing it because they actually care about the people or that they're trying to lead. They're doing it because they think that's the way that they control the situation.
Yes.
And then, that's not good.
Yes. It's all about control. There's no real humane approach to it, And then the interesting thing about it is, when I say humane, I'm on this thing now where it's leaders forget that they're humans too, right? So when you're implementing policies and things, they're not only affecting other people, they're affecting you as well, even though you can find ways to tweak it so that you as a leader and as an executive can come out ahead, and then others have a different outcome. But it's still affecting you and impacting not just you, but your family as well, depending on the type of benefits and compensation that you're implementing. It's still hindering you in some way. So it's just strange that people forget that.
Yeah. Well, I go back to self-determination theory, and the motivation is autonomy, relatedness, competence, basic psychological needs. All humans share, unless you're not human, then, which I think we all are, as far as I know. I've been watching Resident Alien lately. But aside from that, we have these same basic psychological needs, and you're talking control is opposite of autonomy, right? And so, people want to control the situation, but they can still get what they need through influence, right? And relationships and building and connection. And so I'm just curious, are you working with larger companies or smaller companies, or is it range?
it's interesting the times that we're in now, because people can. I work with solopreneurs all the way up to large corporations because I've done government as well. So that's thousands of people.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't really have a range. And when I say solopreneurs, it's because a business owner will forget that they are the employee, So I'm coming in and helping them to make sure that they have a structure that works for them so that they can be more efficient and effective. So I'm still working with them and helping them to build frameworks in different ways so they can go about being less stressed or making errors and things as they go about and creating a process and a system so that they can just perform at their best. So it doesn't really have any real approach to it. I'm actually kind of moving more into advisory versus hands-on consulting, especially because I know you got ChatGPT now and stuff like that. So you can kind of figure out a lot of stuff on your own now if you really are good with AI. So it's more me leaning into giving that human understanding now. So I'm leaning more into advisory, and I think I'm gonna stick with that. So.
Yeah, no, it sounds like, solopreneur, you're basically doing some coaching and advising. Yes. Definitely. Do you see any differences between the smaller companies and the larger companies and how they approach this, or what you're finding in terms of the issues or challenges?
I think with smaller companies, there's more patience. There's more of a willingness to understand versus with a larger business. There's so many people that they have to deal with. So it's like, I need the answer now. I need it now. And that's another reason why the control comes in, or the leading through control, because there's always this time is money, and I need this answer now. And so, and then the understanding that greed is good. Right. So when we look at greed, we're focusing more on the dollar, and not that being greedy doesn't necessarily mean you have to forget that you can be human, and that helps you to benefit from greed, I guess.
Yeah. I think Kim Blanchard says that profit is the applause you get for doing a great job. Right. Yeah. And so, but sometimes I think it's hard to look at that as the secondary benefit as opposed to the primary. But no company is created just purely because of money. There's a value, right? People don't just spend money for a service or product unless it provides value to them. So there's usually some kind of purpose behind it, I would say. So I guess now moving in, so you go into an organization, you figure out what's going on, you've got identified some of the issues, and there's always this kind of people connection thing that you seem to be identifying on themes. You said you're not doing so much hands-on anymore, but what are kind of your recommendations or ways forward, or what have you seen that works the most, or any like stories or best practices that that you've seen, not to get to that there's no recipe. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So something that I've learned, and as I got more into the academics, right, I got really as you say, understanding how the sausage is made, right? And so, but what I've learned is most people don't want to know how the sausage is made. They just want to be given the recipe.
Yep.
Right. But when it comes to leadership, there are instructions and best practices, and there's things that you can do in terms of how you work with people and how you manage tasks, and all of those different kind of things. But at the end of the day, there's no recipe. Whereas you do A, B, C, and D in the right amounts, like you're just going to end up, because people are complicated and everybody's different. And so anyways, it's this balance I think you have to find between, like, it's not just a straightforward recipe, but also I think most people don't have the time. Like we have gotten like nerded out into the PhD level into this like learning and psychology and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And that's where the patience comes in. And, when we think about having to be leaders and lead, you have to be patient. But in the society that we live in and in the world that we live in, is, as I was saying, with larger corporations, there's no time for patience. There's no time to be patient. Everything is quick and to the point. And if it doesn't work, invest somewhere else.
Where do you think that's coming from in these larger organizations? I mean, is it because they're setting goals, or they're feeling a sense of urgency that if they don't move so quickly, then they're gonna, fall out or get, replaced?
Yeah, that's really what it is, especially as technology is changing. So if it's like a tech company,
Sure.
it's, we don't have time, there's so
Right.
many advances that are just happening as we're sitting here talking. And so,
Sure.
if you can't do it, we'll find someone else that can. And that's really what it is. Cutthroat.
Yeah. Well,
But that doesn't solve problems.
well, yeah, but and at some point it's like, well, you could just keep doing that until you never find it, and then at some point, I guess you got to realize, like, oh wait, maybe we need to slow down to speed up. I guess,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I like that. Slow down to speed up.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where I used to tell people is like, well, I don't have time to do that. It's like you don't have time not to do that.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So like we're working on something, and you're never gonna have, if you look anywhere into the future, even just days, if not months, or weeks, or
Yes.
months, or years, it's like you keep doing it this way. If you don't stop and look around and change and address these things, then you're never gonna, make it to where you're trying to get to.
Yeah, it's definitely a tunnel vision, and then within those types of environments, that's where fear comes in, from employees, because then they don't want to speak up. They don't want to voice their opinions on a lot of things. And so you kind of just go along with it.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some of you're finding some of these trends and these people things. Do you have some stories or examples of solutions or success stories from working with some of these organizations that maybe others could take away?
I think one of the best things about, or one thing that I've found is, as you mentioned, I'll go back to the balance, how you said there needs to be balance. Because I've worked with companies that have overdone. And I guess, for an example, where they're heavily investing in wellness programs, different foods and catering and all of these different things, and safe spaces, nap spaces.
Those nap pods, I've seen those things. They look like little alien beings
all
or
of
something.
this. And still, there's no real relationship going on within the workplace. So people are happy, but they're only happy because the food is good. They're happy because they have all these perks, right? And it's not really that they're happy with the job. There's still no structure when it comes to allowing people to work how they need to work, or ensuring that they have what they need when they're working. So there's still no balance. And then there's still that control when they're working. So you're over policed, right? How you're typing, where you're working, all of this type of stuff. So there's still these control mechanisms there, but then you're making it seem like there isn't, because there's so much opportunity for you to just feel free, right?
Yeah.
So you're really not free. And so there's an imbalance there. And then it's the assumption that that's going to drive performance, when really it's not. There was not really no innovation happening within this one specific company. So it's more just understanding that you don't have to wrangle in with toys or with gifts and things like that.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily going to drive any change or any performance, or reduce any errors, or, there was still high turnover, actually. It was still, with all of these great things. And so there was nothing being created, nothing being produced. It was just a hamster wheel of going about what we're doing. And no one's really communicating. No one's really understanding, or really, there was no motivation to really change anything, really. And if there's no real progress within a business, you're not achieving any goals. You're just going about the daily routine. So it was just very interesting. And I think that also was kind of go back to best practices, or just looking at what the competitors are doing. So you see other companies are heavily investing in these types of programs and things like that. But just because you have these nice things doesn't mean that they're actually valuable and resulting in an actual positive impact, not just monetarily, but, intangibly. right?
Yeah. No, totally. So, Ed, I'm a broken record when it comes to SDT, but the psychological needs, I mean, that's exactly, you're saying that, look, you can put it, it's like an iceberg, right? You can put the ping pong tables and the nap pods and stuff on the surface. But what's happening underneath is that's not going to create connection just by default. And I've seen it in the government in particular is so classic for taking like a model or an initiative or some kind of intervention that someone else did successfully and then just trying to mirror it. And so when I was coming up in my early years in the government, Lean Six Sigma was the big thing. But as I learned about Lean Six Sigma, and then we started trying to apply it to these projects, right? And I remember one of them was they told me, all right, I had a black belt. I finished my black belt in Lean Six Sigma. And they're like, you're going to run this portfolio project. It's this huge thing. We want to reduce install time from, 10 months to 1 month or something. Like, okay, so let's get in, let's analyze the process and figure out what's really happening in the process so we can start figuring out how to improve it. Turns out they'd never actually installed one of these before. They made an assumption that it was a 10-month install based on other similar systems that they had installed previously. And so, well, that's not a Lean Six Sigma event then. We're not trying to improve a process. The process doesn't exist yet. We need to build the process. And so if you don't apply a methodology or some best practice, like having a ping pong table in an office or something, in the way that fits your own company's culture, then it's not going to actually impact those psychological needs and the actual connection. So it's almost like Facebook or, the social media with all the likes. I think of that too, is you get this false sense of connection just because it's there. I got 50,000 likes on my post. It's like, yeah, but you still have no actual connection with humans.
Yeah.
Right. So your needs aren't being satisfied.
And that's the interesting thing too, because now we have bots and people, they buy likes and follows and all that. And the thing with social media is you have to convert that to make a living off of social media. You got to be able to convert that to actual paid dollars. So you can get all the likes, and you could have all the notoriety and fame, but are you able to have a lifestyle? Can you survive off of that? And that's why you see people try to go viral and do all these different things. You're not necessarily get paid. So,
but even more importantly, is it bring well-being, right? Exactly. Are you happy at the end of the day? Because you look at some of the richest people, they're not happy.
No, they're not.
You're not any more happy than you are. Yeah. It's all external. It's that external motivation. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, we could talk for hours about the psychological need satisfaction and what works and what doesn't. Are there any other examples you have from other organizations of things that have worked? Obviously I'm about to get a ping pong table and put it into my office that we're getting, but it's not, I don't expect that to create the connection, right? That could be a facilitator. So, it's a way to have something fun, but it's how you use it and integrate it into the culture, right?
Yeah, very, very, very much so. I think two things that come to mind when you ask me that, and after what we've just said, is two things that I found and what I always have to lean into is a lot of businesses mimic other businesses. And then on top of that, they're mimicking and they don't know their culture, just like what we were mentioning. Those two things, I think, and that's another reason why there leans into trust issues. And that in itself hinders how motivated and confident people are within the business. That's the main thing that I found. And so when I'm going in and looking, it's always about people recognizing how they're feeling within the space. That's the first thing. How and culture is it could be such a broad word, even though it's not really a broad thing, but it can be abstract. Yeah. When you're in these different spaces, and when I say different spaces, just this office and that office, even though they're down the hallway or whatever, or someone's working remotely, so your culture within where you are working is totally different than someone else's, and how you work. So it's not just the workspaces and the company's culture, but it's also the culture that we have, right? And so that's why it's important to have a relationship or try to put that work in. You can't know every employee if you're a large corporation like the government, but you have to create that sense of culture. You know, military, they have a culture of how they think, how they operate. And a lot of these businesses, they don't. They could say, oh, our mission is this and this and that and that, but you create culture through relationships. And if you're not willing to take time to build that relationship and work on that relationship, then there's no way to have an in sync, I guess you could say in sync, because you have it moving in a certain way. So everyone's in sync with how we're going about what our overall goal is and how we want to respect everyone. And just as we mentioned, how everyone's needs can be met. Mm-hmm.
Right. No, and I think it comes back to your initial theme of just, it's not just the recipe. You can, it's good to take best practices from other companies. I think that's, and then you modify, but you have to, it can't just be that shallow, like, well, they did this, so we'll just do exactly that. Right. Yes. It's like, well, but you're a different organization. You have a different product, you have a different culture, you have different people. And so understanding how that actually integrates into the culture, and I think you're getting at subcultures and, and even individual values, because everyone is their own unique person. You can't expect everyone to have the exact same values as everybody else and as the organization, but they have to be able to like interrelate. They have to be able to work together, or I guess be compatible. So I don't know. I guess I'm curious. So are you doing much in terms of interventions with helping companies once you come in and identify some of these issues? Are you helping them, work through that? And
I can work on that. Yes, because through evaluation, I'm not just coming in and looking at the analysis side. I follow all the way through to the end of a project. So that's my understanding of evaluation. I'm there for the beginning to the end. So I will be along for when solutions are looked at and how they will be implemented. And even during the implementation process, what's working, what's not working, are those goals being met? So I'm throughout the whole life cycle. And sometimes I used to go into developing different solutions, but I find that I like to have a clear understanding throughout the life cycle versus doing hands-on work in that aspect.
Got it. Okay. See, we could be really synergistic then, because I like going into the organizations once you figure. I mean, I like to do some of the analysis. I'm working on a survey actually. We're launching later today with the organization to 300-400 people to get the initial assessment and understand kind of where they're at. And it's factors like you're talking about, justice, right? Fairness, and
yes,
how they feel that things are fair. Do they have growth opportunities? Is there meaning in their work? Is there purpose behind what they're doing? The connection with their leader, with their colleagues, all those kind of things. Because if you don't have the data, if you don't know where you're at, how do you figure out where you need to go?
Exactly.
But actually, doing some of that training and implementation and developing the leaders so that we can actually create an environment where people like to come to work and they want to come to work and they're not hitting a snooze button 5 times or 6 times.
Yeah, exactly.
So super important. So I kind of want to shift a little bit because I'm curious. You have a PhD, I think in like education, right?
Yes, in education, adult education, specifically training and performance improvement. So it's really the human performance technology or human performance improvement, whichever side you believe, methodology. So
yeah. So how do you apply that in the work you're doing? Is there any like core theories that you're leveraging, or like stuff from your dissertation?
Yeah, I would have to say Kirkpatrick, of course, and then Phillips and Phillips's methodology, because it's all about evaluation. So those are the two main approaches to what I'm doing. Really, that's my lane, and
right.
That's where I'm at. I don't really lean towards anything else. Of course, there's other theories, but they all align back to Kirkpatrick. So bottom line, Kirkpatrick.
So Kirkpatrick, levels 3 and 4, right, is did a training or an intervention or something not just lead to an enjoyment or a retain or learning, but did it actually change behavior, and did that behavior change lead to positive impact in the organization?
Mm-hmm.
So those are really hard to measure. And you don't, even in academic studies, you rarely see those types of outcome measures, right? It's usually more of like survey based, and especially in psychology, because it's just easier to do. And there's only so much money in the world to, or in academics to be able to measure these harder things. Have you been able to get to those levels with organizations and figure out some of those like ways of measuring? I mean, obviously you have retention metrics and things that most companies track or could track if they wanted to.
Really, it's just it's giving a value to emotion. So that's specifically what I'm doing. So within a business, it's really you got to align yourself with accounting, finance department. That's really what it is. And so when you have changes in behavior, or when someone's feeling a specific way, then you have to look at how their actions are impacting their overall performance. So when they've made a decision or taken an action based on however they're feeling, that's the best way to tie it numerically, if that makes sense. Am I explaining that right? Giving it a numerical value. So it's the emotion behind every action and reaction.
So you're almost trying to link the emotion, how people are feeling, to the bottom line, I guess.
Yes, and that's why my business is called Linked Results.
Very nice.
Yes. I'm all about linking it all together, and that's definitely a Phillips and Phillips, which builds off of Kirkpatrick, and that's the idea of giving the intangible a tangible value. So you can look at trend line analysis, or you can look at predicting, as we said, if you've implemented something very similar. So that's why I think when we mentioned they had never, with the military, how they wanted to implement something, even though they never implemented before, and they're going off of something that they assume from someone else. But if you've already implemented something very similar, then you can kind of have an understanding of what may come out. And then from there, then you can give a dollar value to that based on past experiences and what occurred prior. So it's very, very tricky, very, very tedious, very, very long and winded process.
Right. Well, yeah. And like one of the challenges that I had, I wanted to do this study on an intervention that I did in an organization, but we were doing like 6 or 7.
Yes.
Right? Because you get into an organization that's struggling, you don't have time to like, okay, for the first 3 months, we're going to do just this, and then we're going to see what happens, and we're going to measure before and after. Then we're going to do this. No, we're going to roll out some leadership training. We're going to do a comms plan. We're going to start doing these, all hands meetings or something. We're going to put out a newsletter. We're going to, X, Y, all these different things. You don't have time to like isolate it. So
Yes.
So are you able to still kind of isolate certain interventions that you're doing to some of these financial metrics?
Yeah. You just have to, you really just have to have a strong process, a strong evaluation plan and system. So for everything that you're expecting, you need to have, or everything you're looking to implement or go about making a change, whatever that is, you have to have those objectives. Who's going to do it, the time for it, the expectation from it, and expectation, not just what's going to happen, but the actual impact it's going to have on a business. So it's just a strongly planned out process. And then that's why I say I evaluate throughout the life cycle. So it's very, very tedious. It's very, very tedious. And then also, it helps because now you have AI, right? And you have different ways of getting alerts with how performance is going, or expectations when you're implementing a training and everyone's meeting the goal of what you said for who should pass the test, or how they're learning the information, or however. you're able to determine if that's actually occurring. And then right then and there, if it's not occurring, that's when you go back and you look at the how, what, when, where's, and why. So it's a very long and drawn out process. Evaluation can be very expensive and it takes time. Hence why I said with larger businesses, they don't have time for that. They don't care.
Right.
So if a mistake happens, it's just going to happen. If it's not working, we'll just cut it as a loss. We'll write it off on taxes and we'll move on.
Yeah. Do you have an example of a process that you've done this evaluation for, just to kind of give some context to it?
I could say just even from my dissertation,
Yeah.
and I looked for my dissertation. It was based on how through a fire department, and it was based on how new trainees, how supervisors influence new trainees' abilities to effectively perform, specifically looking at their motivation and confidence, because it's firefighting. So you have to be confident to be able to do it. And it's a job where you have to be very motivated to do it as well. You have to be dedicated to that type of work. It's very, very deadly, not just physically demanding or just coming into contact. It's a serious job. And so I would say just with doing observations. So I did that, and I love doing that actually, because who doesn't want to watch someone like save a life in a fire? So it's really cool. So I think even with observations and me mentioning that, a lot of leaders don't think to just watch, right? What's going on out there? Like we're looking at numbers. I'm looking at, oh, well, she's not typing or whatever. They must be playing around, right? But you're looking, but what are you really looking at? What are you missing when you're looking at them? So just that in itself, I think is one thing where I've helped leaders to just recognize the awareness of how they're going about in leading. Because you automatically think I'm watching. I see them every day, right? But what was I missing? Right? How am I going about looking at something? So I think that was one of the most impactful things. And I love observation. So I think that's a good example of that. And when I do go into a space, I always lean into how leaders are going about monitoring and looking. You're monitoring for control, not necessarily for why something is occurring.
Yeah. No, that's so essentially what I'm hearing is you're isolating a process. In this case, it was like an onboarding process.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. You scope where it starts, where it ends, and what's happening in between. And then you're able to bring in probably, I would guess, the observations, which is more qualitative, but also some quantitative, I would guess, as well. And there's an intention for an output. So you can measure, something, come up with some measure at the end. Got it. Is that kind of a line?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because it's I think everyone has an expectation, right? And so we're more focused on why that, okay, we didn't meet this expectation, so this person needs fired or this person needs reprimanded. And there's never that willingness to dig deeper. So it's helping people to understand that.
Right. And another thing, assuming good intent, I think is so important. That's come up in a few discussions I've had recently, and it's a core value for my company and for some of the organizations I've worked with is, you assume good intent off the bat, right? So that when you're coming into a situation, something may have gone wrong, but if you go in assuming like, oh, well, they were just slacking off, or they were like, no, who comes to work thinking I'm gonna mess this organization up today? Like that doesn't help anybody. I'm sure there's situations of that, but I can't imagine that. From my experience, that's not the common.
It's very interesting when you get lost in different algorithms on LinkedIn, and there are a lot of leaders that truly believe that and think that way, right? And have this assumption that people are just there to not work.
Or I guess theory X, theory Y, right? Yeah. Hertzberg, is that? I don't remember. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, there's all kinds of craziness on LinkedIn and in the world right now. So very good. Well, man, I want to keep digging in, but we're starting to kind of come up on time. So I want to just, I guess, to wrap up, is there any other things you want to mention or plugs you want to make on how people can get in touch with you if they want to work with you or anything like that you want to do?
I mean, if anyone's looking to learn more about evaluation, I'm very honored to spend time and just talk about it. I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements now. So if anyone's looking to have some type of strategy implemented within their business to kind of give an aha moment to create change, just email me, and don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just look me up, Dr. Lisa Marie Lee. Google me. You'll see my picture smiling.
and the cool earrings.
Yes, my staple. Yes,
very exciting. Yeah, awesome. Very good. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.
We'll have to keep these discussions going. Maybe we'll have you on again and just keep digging in on this stuff. So, very good. Well, I think that's kind of a wrap. So,
yes,
thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.